Good afternoon and welcome to the Law and Crime Report. We start off with the story of Breonna Taylor. There's a few updates in that case. The first stems from a plea deal that her ex-boyfriend, not Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend at the time in which she was killed, but instead her ex-boyfriend, the man they were looking for and found at a different location, he was offered a plea deal with an interesting twist. Let's start by looking at that clip as more information.
Bed.
Watched the movie.
She was in your room
We was
watching.
in both in the room. She had actually just dozed off, probably like 10 minutes before. So laying there, laying on her, watched the movie by myself. It was a loud bang at the door. Both of us are not decent. Can't even think of the word right now. You know, we're at home. In the bed, it's 12 at night. Our day's over. So it's a loud bang at the door. She pops up out of her sleep. It scared her to death. Me too. Like, who is that? I was honestly thinking it was because we've been on and off together or whatever for like 7 years or whatever. So it was a guy that she was messing with or whatever throughout that time, you know. And he popped up over there once before while I was there like a couple months ago. So that's what I thought was going on. So it's a loud boom at the door. First thing she said was, "Who is it?" No response. So we like, what the heck? We both get up, start putting on clothes. Another knock at the door. She's like, "Who is it?" Loud at the top of her lungs. No response. So I'm like, what the heck? So then I grab my gun, which is legal, like I'm licensed to carry everything. I've never even fired my gun outside of a range. I'm scared to death. So she says that there's another knock at the door. She's yelling at the top of her lungs, and I am too at this point. Who is it? No answer, no response, no anything. So we like, what the heck? We both just see what I have on. Grab the nearest thing. These aren't even mine. These are hers. Like, so we both are just putting on something to go answer the door and see who's knocking at the door this late at night. So when we get out of the bed or whatever, like walking towards the door, the door comes like off the hinges. So I just let off one shot. Like I still can't see who it is or anything. So now the door's like flying open. I let off one shot, and then all of a sudden there's a whole lot of shots, and like we both just dropped to the ground, and the gun like fell like right over there, and I like kicked it because I'm like scared to death. Like now we're seeing lights and stuff, so it's looking like okay, it's the police, and there's a lot of yelling and stuff. So there's just shooting, and like we're both on the ground, and then when all the shots stop, I'm like panicking. She's right there on the ground, like bleeding, and yeah.
All right, so there you can see that's Kenneth Walker's statement that was given to the officers about what happened at that event. Let's bring in my two guests. We've got Hunter Shkolnik as well as Judge Birmingham. Your Honor, let's start with you. This is Kenneth Walker reliving that event that led to the death of Breonna Taylor, his girlfriend at the time. And he, interestingly enough, is filing a suit against both the police department and the prosecution because he's alleging, among other things, malicious prosecution as well as a wrongful arrest. And he's citing the stand your ground laws from the state there, which kind of makes sense to some degree. Talk to us about that stand your law argument that he's making, that he's saying someone broke into his home and he thought that he had the right to defend himself.
You have an absolute right to defend yourself against somebody who is breaking into your house. That's what the stand your ground law basically means. And if you're in your house, especially at nighttime, and somebody's breaking in, you don't have to retreat. You don't have to seek reasonable alternative measures. That's basically what the stand your ground law means. We have that here in Texas, and they have it obviously there too. And if that happens, you can use that as a justification for your conduct so that you are not able to be prosecuted for it.
Yeah. Now, Hunter, it's an interesting play for us here because in one aspect, it's the police officers executing a search warrant. I know factually speaking, there were some issues that they said that they believed they had went to the post office and they said that suspicious packages were getting there. The post office said no one came to them. My favorite part of his motion is this, quote, "It is the tradition that a Kentuckian never runs. He does not have to." And so they're really arguing here in the suit, He's in his home and he has a right to defend himself, and he believed he was being attacked. What are some of your thoughts as to that argument?
I think what you have to understand is Kentucky is what we call a castle doctrine state, meaning your home is your castle. You don't have to run. You can stand your ground. You can defend your home. You can defend your family and your loved ones. Here, the dispute and what they're trying to say is they advised or they called out it's the police and a warrant. That's a factual dispute, which I think probably doesn't hold much water. Here, there was someone breaking into a door late at night. Mr. Walker had a registered gun. He had the right to protect him and Breonna. He had a right to shoot. He didn't have to stop. He didn't have to back down. That's the stand your ground law, and that's what he did. And then they arrest him for that, for exercising his right. This whole arrest, it really leads to this malicious prosecution. He did nothing wrong under the law. It was the police in this setting that did something wrong.
Yeah. Now, in the Breonna Taylor case, or saga, because of how long it's going on, there's another aspect that's really changing. We learned recently that the ex-boyfriend, not Kenneth Walker, but the ex-boyfriend who was the original target, he was offered a plea deal. Now, both of you as attorneys and judge, we see plea deals all the time. The interesting aspect of this was part of the plea deal, which could have avoided jail time, was to say that Breonna Taylor was a part of a drug trafficking enterprise. I haven't read any facts that support that other than trying to get a plea. Judge Birmingham, you've seen pleas before. You've taken pleas for hundreds, if not thousands, of defendants. What did you make of this plea negotiation and this concept?
Well, I want to go back to when I used to be a prosecutor. And, you know, yes, there are times and occasions when you offer plea bargains and you're hopeful that somebody will testify against somebody else. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the public is going to hold you accountable for that. And on the one hand, you're saying, we're going to give you a 10-year sentence because we think you're so dangerous you belong in prison. But on the other hand, we're willing to say you get probation if you testify against and say that she was a part of this conspiracy. Now, I don't know what the evidence is, but the public doesn't like that. And as a prosecutor, you better own your plea bargain offers when you make a plea bargain offer like that, that will allow somebody to go free unless they basically say what you want them to say. And there's going to be a lot of questions to be answered for that. And I will note, too, he rejected that plea bargain. Yeah. He said that he would rather stand on his ground, stand with the truth, in his mind, his truth, which is she wasn't, as opposed to getting out and getting probation, which he could have had, apparently.
Yeah, that's a pretty honorable thing, I would say, in general. I know they say there's no honor amongst thieves, but that seemed pretty a strong stance to take. Hunter, the thing that really perplexed me, oftentimes these deals are given in the inverse. And what I mean by that, it's typically given to catch the big fish. You often see, for example, if Breonna Taylor was arrested and she was a small fish, to take a plea to say that the bigger fish was a part of it, it seemed almost backwards in that sense, because you'd want to go after the main person rather than this trickle-down plea offer to get someone who's already deceased. It seems really peculiar in that sense. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, you have to think about who was the big fish here. The big fish in this situation was defending the action of the police and the prosecutor here. They're doing, and I hope this is not what really occurred. It looks like they're trying to utilize the plea process to get this defendant to say something that is not true in order to get themselves off the hook. That's not what the plea process is for. It's to advance justice and do what's right. Here they were using it to do something that was completely wrong. You don't try to get someone who's facing 10 years to say someone is involved in a crime just to make it look good for the arrest and the prosecution.
Yeah. And Judge Birmingham, you brought up a good point about the prosecutor needing to back it up. In my mind, this information as to whether or not Breonna Taylor was a part of this criminal enterprise, that seems to me information that should come out from a different source. Because as a defense attorney, if we're going down this route, and let's say this gentleman takes the plea, and now I'm saying to myself, so the only information you have that Breonna Taylor was a part of this criminal enterprise is from her ex-boyfriend who said it, and there's not much else, that seems pretty weak. I'm not sure if a jury would buy that. if he did end up saying that. Like I'm creating that hypothetical. I don't know how strong that would be if that did actually happen.
Well, if it only came from him in Texas and in most states, and I'm pretty sure Kentucky's the same way, you cannot just simply take the word of a co-conspirator. There has to be some independent corroborating evidence to support it. But the peculiar thing about this is, she's gone. There is going to be no prosecution. What is he going to testify to against Breonna Taylor? There's no case. There can be no case. You can't prosecute the dead. So this is a very peculiar situation indeed.
Yeah. Now, it would be very peculiar if he had done it, but on multiple occasions, Hunter, we're hearing in jailhouse calls, we're hearing in interviews that Glover, the ex-boyfriend, has given. And on multiple occasions, I think the only connection that we've really seen is that maybe he had mail delivered there. There's no real connection that we've seen as of yet to say that she was anywhere connected with this enterprise. So again, it seems like you're saying the big fish is the police department. They're trying to, I don't know, it seems like something straight out of a conspiracy theory, but all the pieces are there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very simple, and the judge hit it right on the head. The reason why you would want this defendant to take a plea and blame Breonna is if she was alive, she was here to be prosecuted for a crime. You don't do this for any other reason. It doesn't help them. It's clear the only reason why they wanted this defendant to say that she was involved was to help defend their actions here. She was not involved. There is no evidence to support that. And she's not even here to be charged with a crime. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense unless you're doing exactly what you were saying. And it's improper if that's what's going on, because as a prosecutor, they should not be trying to find information to help a potential defendant in that way, shape, or form to get that type of information from another defendant if they've already unequivocally said that Breonna Taylor was not involved in any criminal enterprise involving drug trafficking. It's very improper if there is no facts to support that, which we have not seen as of yet. We're going to continue with more here at the Law and Crime Report right after this break.